What you're hearing is Hardy Fiber Cement Siding living up to its reputation as the siding that helps resist weather damage, no matter what Mother Nature throws its way. James Hardy knows how important a reputation is, especially when you're a home builder. That's why Hardy products withstand the elements better than wood-based siding, with styles to match their strength. Because when home builders work with us, we deliver our best so they can look their best. Protect your reputation with exterior products by James Hardy.
Blog Talk Radio.
The best late-night conservative talk show in America, Sackheads Radio. And listen, there are no people better on the air to give you the best in conservative talk than Sackhead Sean and Sackhead Clint. And we're working on the immigration papers for a certain other guy who happens to work here, too. For those who are tuning in around the world to the best in late-night conservative talk, Sackheads Radio.
Sack news. Sack news.
Radio.
Sack news. Sack news.
Radio.
The best late-night conservative talk show in America. In America.
In America.
And in this web was a large, I'm pretty sure it was the biggest spider I've ever seen.
Spider gets bigger every time you tell that story. Hey, welcome to the Sackheads Radio Show. It is the 19th of March, 2014. I am one half of your host, Sackhead Sean. Sitting across from me is Sackhead Clint. How are you, buddy?
I'm doing very well, sir. How are you?
I'm tired.
Me too. Let's go to sleep. So tonight's show's canceled. We're going to take a nap. What?
I'm sure the people at home think that gets old, but I never do. How's your week?
It was busy.
God, I feel like I haven't seen you in forever.
My friend, at least a couple days.
So this weekend, we had a fun weekend.
We had a very fun weekend. It was long nights.
We just hung out and did nothing.
No, nothing at all. Matter of fact, if you go to our website, you're going to see pictures of us doing absolutely nothing.
Doing nothing, and that would be at the sackheadsradio.com if you want to see pictures from this weekend's event. We actually went to the California State Republican Convention, spent the whole weekend broadcasted from there. All those are up on our iTunes if you want to listen to those, and made some great friends, some great contacts, found out some really cool stuff about candidates and some groups and some PACs, and it was...
Signed a couple autographs, big.
We did sign. That's the most amazing part to me. I wish that somebody was... You know, it's almost like when you see Sasquatch, and
right.
It's always that one person, you always wish they had a camera. Because every time I came back, you were like, hey, I just signed another autograph. And I was like, wait, what?
No, it was one group. And there were about a couple autographs in there.
I know. Of course, I was probably off eating. That was one of the fun
people
parts.
wanting to take pictures with us.
Absolutely, yeah. It was crazy. You can see all the pictures. Like I said, they're at sackheadsradio.com. Click on the, I think it's the first link right now, and all the pictures should be up there. We are simulcasting tonight on iHeartRadio, Spreaker, as well as here at Blog Talk Radio. Phone number, as it is every week, 347-205-9399. It should be programmed into your phone on speed dial, and you should be anxiously awaiting to press it so we can put you on hold. Thank you to everyone joining in the chat room this evening. We appreciate you being here. Excuse me.
What was that?
I just choked in my own tongue. Why? Don't you ever do that?
No. No, I don't even know what to say to you right now. That was so odd.
I do what I can.
Like your eyes bugged out of your head for a moment. You look like, okay, so on, what was the show with Arnold Schwarzenegger and he goes,
yes.
Remember at the end when they're
not Inner Space. Yeah, I know what you're talking. The one where they go to Mars. Yes.
Right. Remember when they're outside and they're like out the planet and their eyes start bugging out of their head? Well,
that's what I look like for that minute.
That's what you look like.
That's how I feel right now, just so you know. So we did. We had a great weekend. It was our first real remote. We've done a couple other small things, but that was the first big one. Sarko, again, I can't say enough about that kid. He made it happen, and we absolutely abused him all weekend. And the kid worked so hard for us, and he did such a good job. And
he did a phenomenal job.
The best part is every once in a while, you ever get somebody that's a chatter? Like you're in the middle of doing something, or you're somewhere where you can't really leave, and you have that person that comes up and they're a chatter, not in a bad way, but they just want to chat on and on and on and on and on and on and on for like an hour, hour and a half. Now,
yeah, we lived that a couple times.
We did live that, and all very nice people.
Absolutely.
But they would just, they ask about the show, and then you start talking about politics, and then, you're seeing other people that are coming by our booth that are like trying to get a minute to say hi or whatever, and you're like trying to, hold on one second, and you're not trying to be, I don't want to be rude. I mean, they're lovely people. But I don't want to be like, hey, you got to go pound sand because there's somebody else I want to talk to as well. So
you only said that twice.
So that's where Sacco came in. Because more than once did I turn around and be like, well, Sacco would love to answer that question for you, and then walk away.
What's wrong with that?
And then come back about 20 minutes later watching Sacco just staring at me. Daggers would be the only way to look at it, as I'm eating the food from the press room in front of him.
Oh, Sacco, this sure is good.
So it was a really good time. And thank you again to everyone there at the California GOP who had us and hosted it. They did a wonderful job. It was a really nice event. And go ahead.
So my favorite part of the whole thing was how the mainstream media knew kind of how they handled us. They had no idea, like what we were. So it was like AP reporters were there, and
New York,
Times,
LA
Times, San Jose Mercury News, and we were the only non-traditional media. Yeah, there was us and there was one other writer. Conservalicious.com is our website. Deb is a great friend of ours now. We spent the weekend hanging out. If you like our stuff, go check hers out. She has a really good she and a couple of the guys over there have some really good stuff. But other than that, so it was because they had no idea who we were or what we were about, and they were carrying themselves a certain way. And even it was a little weird dealing with some of the candidate staffers at first, until they figured out, oh, you guys are sackheads. Oh, conservative. Oh yeah, come on, it's great. Like
you're actually going to have a conversation with us and not just hammer us on every little misstep that we've ever made.
Right.
Awesome. And it did. It really changed people's whole. It was so funny to watch how they responded when they find. Hey, and we made no bones about it. Hey, we're a conservative talk show. We're not hiding who we are. We're a conservative talk show. As soon as you said those words, it was amazing. People 180. Boom. They want to come over and talk to you and have a conversation. Mm-hmm. Candidates were seeking out our booth to come over and talk to us, which I thought was a lot of fun.
Hardy Fiber Cement Siding is proven to withstand water, pests, and fire better than wood-based siding. And it looks better while doing it. Hardy Siding has been chosen for 10 million homes and counting. See the proof at jameshardy.com.
Really good people. I was psyched.
Matter of fact, I hope we have time tonight to get to the clips of the folks who wanted to give a message to the Republican Party.
Yeah, so we did a 30-second thing. We have 15 or so. I don't remember how many we got exactly that we can use, because some of them we could not use, and that's us saying that. So, but we said, hey, everyone gets a chance to record 30-second message to the GOP. What do you want to see them do in the upcoming elections, both 2014, 2016, or in general? Do you want to see them change a rule? Do you want to see them change this or whatever? This is your chance, and we'll post it on our website. So Sacco's been working feverishly at trying to get all those edited and ready to go. But we had, 8 or 9 other clips that he had to pull from the hours of convention speeches for these. Poor kid. So we probably attended, 5 hours of speeches at the convention total.
Yep.
That we recorded. And so Sacco, you're going to go through and literally find 8, most of them no longer than a minute. And these are the clips that we want. Good luck, buddy. So he spent the last 2 days sifting through that.
He sent me a selfie of himself and his eyes red, and he looked like a Porky Pig in the Haunted House cartoon. If you remember, where the mice were trying to kill him and Sylvester, and his eyes were just completely red because he couldn't sleep. That was Sacco.
That was Sacco, the poor kid. But he got it ready, so we definitely have our sound clips tonight. If we get to the other ones, I know he's still working over there in the corner, If we can get the other ones, some of the other ones tonight, we will. But we have so much content to go through tonight. It may have to hold off till next week, and we'll put them up on the website this week sometime. Let's see. So much to talk about this week. I don't even know where to start.
Okay, I'll start. So here's our plan for the night. We wanted to kind of touch base briefly and talk about the CRP convention. And again, some of the candidates. Look, we had an opportunity to speak with the California gubernatorial candidate, Tim Donnelly, who was outstanding. Congressman Sessions was there as well.
Absolutely, Congressman Pete Sessions.
And we had an opportunity to ask him a question during one of the press conferences. We had that clip.
Media only.
and it was interesting, and we'll talk about this in a little bit. It was interesting how there were national Republican figures there. Condoleezza Rice gave a wonderful speech, and we have some clips of that we'd like to discuss as well. So tonight we'll get into that. We have a group coming on at 8:30 to talk about an issue that's very, very dear to them, and I don't want to showbiz their topic, but we'll let them pitch.
Yeah,
what they have coming up.
And we're gonna have a couple different people, so it'll be interesting to see.
We have Condoleezza Rice,
who, by the way,
what?
She looks better now than she did when she was Secretary of State.
Who does? Pete Sessions? He's a congressman.
Condoleezza Rice.
Oh,
and I don't know if it's because she's out of that stressful situation, that limelight, but she looks 10 times. She had actually had an amazing speech. Really enjoyed that as well. I had listened to Ryan's speech Friday night. It was okay. It kind of, believe it or not, the content of it kind of mimicked what the California GOP is doing.
it was very vanilla.
It was very vanilla. It wasn't as arousing as I hope it would be. Don't make that joke. I mean, it didn't get people going.
Right.
It wasn't that rah-rah siskumba that I was expecting from it Friday night, because if you're going to kick off a convention, you're the head of the GOP.
Yeah, make it like mint chocolate chip with magic shell on it.
Dude, you better parachute in, have stuff blow up, and then have Kiss close for you as you're getting off stage.
Right.
Because Gene Simmons is a conservative. He'd do it.
And absolutely he would. And there's a reason why the national Republicans were at this event, and that's all I'm gonna leave it with right there. Look, hopefully we will get time to get to our the Sessions clip, Pete Sessions clip, the Tim Donnelly clip. The more I see of him, the more I am impressed.
Tim Donnelly, yes.
Tim Donnelly. And one thing that I found very interesting was the size of the Tea Party group that was at the CRP.
Over half, in my opinion.
I believe I would say that's accurate. Yeah, very, very conservative Republicans there.
And the best part, we talked about this before, is the youth that are involved in that movement and how many young people are there. And we talked about it a little bit, I think, when we were wrapping up on Sunday. But one of the cool things I thought, people have to remember is, yeah, you did have that older Republican group that's, been voting Republican for a long time. They've been around for a long time. But there's that noticeable middle-age group gone, that 40 to 55. There wasn't a lot of people in that age range there.
Mm-hmm.
And that's when the Republicans have really dropped the ball in that whole group. And then there's that 35 and under crowd that was charged up, Tea Partiers. I was in the room when Tom McClintock was giving the speech to the Tea Party caucuses. I tried to record it, but the cheering was so loud and constant.
Yep.
I honestly could not get any usable audio out of the recording. And that room was packed. Every single time the caucus had a meeting or a speaker, that room would jam full. I couldn't even get in a few times. And I had my press badge. I showed it to people, but they just wouldn't move. I don't understand. But it was great to see that. It really kind of recharged me living in this state that has a tendency to be so progressive and sane. To see that young group there, that was pretty awesome.
And here's what I wanted to kind of let our listeners know how it works, because we actually have a very dynamic, here at Sackheads Radio, we have a very dynamic team.
We do.
And we function so well together. We each kind of have our niche that we're good at. And so I just kind of want to give folks, if you're okay with it, kind of a behind-the-scenes peek as to how the Sackheads function when we go to events like this.
Okay.
So we have Sackhead Sacco, or Socka Nuts, as I like to call him. And Sacco is, as most people know, our producer, our tech guy, and he really keeps us up and running with everything he does. He does all our sound. He's the one that does our music. It's an original musical score.
Yeah, and he does all of our
I'm
music.
pretty sure it was up for a Sackhead Award.
It was up for a Sackhead.
For best musical score for the Sackhead's radio show. I don't think it won, though.
No. Unfortunately, you playing
Wheels on the
spoon
Bus
somehow won.
Wheels on the Bus won, which is odd. So he really sets us up and keeps our audio up and running as we feed him clips and sound bites and little interview pieces we do while we're going around. He's cleaning them up and plugging it up. As we go back with photos, he's keeping our slideshow updated, keeping our website updated, keeping us plugged in and good to go.
Yeah, keeping us on time for press interviews and all that stuff.
Yep, it keeps our schedule ready to go for us because we have ADD pretty much. We're all over the place.
Well, I never would have left the food area. You can't put me near a free food area.
We can do
expect me to walk
at
out.
the food area.
Yeah, and we did actually.
So, but Sacco, unfortunately, the downside of that is he's usually at the booth maintaining the equipment and keeping things going. So Sacco, we love him to death. He doesn't get a chance to move around as much as the on-air personalities do.
He's like Scotty from Star Trek.
He's like Scott. Exactly.
He keeps the room running.
And what's great is he will actually say things like, I'm giving her all she's got.
And I literally said, that's great, Sacco. Just switch the AA batteries in the recorder, please.
Right. Right. And meanwhile, he's trying to hook the thing up to a generator to give it more power.
Or steal electricity from the people sitting next to us.
Right. Either way, we don't care. We're like, there is no such thing as dilithium crystals, Sacco.
When I ever said to him that we needed a camera and he was going to go up and club the guy with a microphone from the news agency and take his camera, that's how committed that kid is to the cause.
Absolutely. So then Sean is really the kind of the life of the party in terms of our social media. Sean is the one who is out there interacting with folks, all our Twitter feeds that are live as we're in there listening to the speeches and so forth. Sean is pushing everything out on Twitter, keeping everything up to date on Facebook, making sure our social media is up and running, and keeping us really connected with the world that way, and keeping us going. So that's which is a tremendous deal, obviously, especially for something like this. First of all, you're up on it constantly, all the time. You are the one. If it's a tweet, there's a 99% chance that it came from Sean. Same with as our blog is working for the show. Once in a while, I'll jump on, but I don't even know if the damn thing's turned on. So,
like you said earlier, when we were sitting down, you're like, I did something and I don't know what happened to Twitter. And I said, yeah, you minimized it, Chief. That's it.
Right. That's me. So and then I went out and I'd talk to the candidates, do the specific interviews with the candidates, and getting the FaceTime with staffers and so forth, and making those contacts with my technology is a little Meade notebook. And we were kind of laughing about that, but I have a digital recorder and a notebook, and that's kind of my thing, while Sean is walking around with a laptop computer and his cell phone and getting the social media out. So we all really have our niche, and it works out very, very well. I mean,
right.
It's just one of those combinations that seems to have worked very well for us, which is why I think we were able to make as positive an impact. It sounds like I'm really patting us on the back, but I am. I'm very proud of the job we did, especially for as new as we are to
introductory
this type of event.
Absolutely.
And now we have convention experience, not a big deal. And what was great is the folks. I want to say thank you very much to the men and women at the California GOP, the California Republican Party, that were working the event, particularly the folks who worked the press area.
Exactly.
It was very, very professional. They were so nice. And you know what's sad is I could tell. We had personality, in case folks can't tell.
We're like this 24/7.
Right. It seems like they were so happy to have press people with personality, which was odd to me. Even the other press people didn't know how to take us, and we basically just didn't care.
Yeah,
that was awesome. But they were so good to us. They really helped us out in terms of getting around. in terms of helping us out with any questions that we had. And I want to thank them for their professionalism, their assistance.
And a couple names of the people that we dealt with the most: Janae, Micah, Rosie.
Now you're naming names, you're going to forget somebody, and we're going to look like complete jackasses.
No, and
so thank you for that.
The head of everything, the one who put everything together as far as press goes, Mark Standriff, who just a great guy. He's a former radio show host himself, which is why I think he took pity on us.
But we want to extend our
treated us. I mean, you want to talk about treating us like champs, and just such a professional organization. I can't say enough about how well we were treated by the organization and candidates. That our hats are off to them for putting such a great job together.
Yeah. So, anyways, I wanted to touch base with that and just kind of give our listening audience an idea of kind of how it worked and how the convention went down. And there would be times we would all come together and hey, this is where we're at. This is what we got. This is what we did. For example, I disappeared for an hour and a half at one occasion. I went to go get food, and like an hour and a half later, Sean sending me a text message, and I was like, "What's this thing in my pocket that's going off?" Oh, Sean must have put a cell phone in there.
We're going to be live in 15 minutes, there, bro.
And I said, "Hey, I'm actually speaking with somebody. I'm making a contact right now. I'll talk to you about it in a little bit." I didn't end up eating, but it worked very well for us. So, my friend, thank you very much.
Thank you, and thank you to everybody who listened this weekend and helped us out in one way or the other. I really appreciate it. I do want to talk about a little bit of who's coming up at 8:30 because it's kind of a big deal, and it's a coalition that's essentially trying to reform the death penalty, but in a positive way, trying to make it quicker, more accurate. So we're going to have California Contra Costa County District Attorney Mark Peterson on to talk about it. Phyllis Loya, whose son was a police officer in California that was killed, and NFL player Kermit Alexander, a former NFL player Kermit Alexander, who his family had 4 members of his family killed by a death row killer in 1984, and he's going to talk a little bit about it. So that's going to be at 8:30. So we're going to have 3 separate guests on that from 8:30 to 9. So I hope you guys enjoy that, and then we're going to get into all the speeches from the event at 9 o'clock.
Why are you looking at me like I know how to work?
Well, because we finished this segment 8 minutes early. We never do that.
We didn't, though, because I do want to talk about this. We already talked about how there were some national GOP folks present during this event. And, look, I think the Republican Party in California has really been dead for a while.
Yes.
And there's a theory. I have a theory behind that where, California, we've talked about this before, has been under the control of the liberal Democrats really since 1970. There was only one period from either 95, 96 or 96, 97 where the Republicans actually controlled the state assembly, but the Democrats still controlled the Senate. Effectively, the Democrats have been in control continuously since 1970, and the condition of the state is horrible. I believe the California Republican Party started moving more to the left. They started doing what the National Party seems to be doing now, and that is running more moderate candidates and even more candidates who are a little more left of center in order to try and pick up Republican seats, Republican votes. And I think what ended up happening is the Republican Party in California shrunk because people were so disenfranchised with it. And as a result, the Democrats now, look, you have a governor in the state, Jerry Brown, who's been more conservative on some fiscal issues than
conservatives,
Meg Whitman, who was the Republican that ran against him,
right.
I believe would have been on a lot of the same issues. And that's an issue for a Republican Party when the Democrat is a little more right of center on certain things than the candidate you're running against, than the candidate you're putting up. So I think that the National Party and national folks were there to try and revitalize the California Party and to get it going again. And I think another reason they were there, and this wasn't said, is look, how California goes, so goes the nation. I think the Republican Party on a national level, if they don't change course, look, they're doing the same thing the California Party did. They're running McCain. They ran Romney. They're running people who are moderate at best, Republicans who are a little left on some issues, and they're getting their butts kicked because the conservatives are staying home. And I think that's what happened in California. Again, that's what's going to happen in the nation. And if the party doesn't figure this out, they're going to be in trouble. The nation is going to be where California is. So I really hope that the party in California can kind of revitalize itself. The Tea Party, they really need to harness that. Like we talked about, the Tea Party had a fairly large showing there at the California convention. And if the Republican Party doesn't embrace the Tea Party effort and get away from the whole idea that, the Tea Party are extremists, like I know is a huge push out there in the media, and we've talked about why that is before. But they really need to get on ball with the fact that, hey, the Tea Party is really the conservative side of the Republican Party, and the Republicans should be more conservative. They're not all that way. So they need to find a way to bring the Tea Party into the fold, and I think that's what Congressman Sessions actually touched base a little bit about when we were in our media presser with him.
Well, and one of the things, too, that did come out of this weekend is there was some voting issues that the Tea Party was pushing a couple mandates to the rules, and they were shut out from the Rules Committee. Mm-hmm. And just to see that was disheartening because, like you just said, we need to embrace that side more and more as a party.
You have to, or the party is going to collapse. I don't believe there is any way for the Republican Party to sustain itself if they ostracize the Tea Party portion mm-hmm. of the. I really don't. And I think you start seeing a rebranding of some of the Tea Parties in order to just they're calling themselves traditional conservatives as opposed to Tea Party. Really, that's what Tea Parties are. They're traditional conservatives.
Well, and the reason they're doing that is because the left has made them into such these ridiculous fallacies of evil people doing evil things, and they want to just hold their money and hold it. They've made it about race. They've made it about everything that they possibly can. So I think that's kind of needed to happen in order to keep the conservative side of the party moving forward.
Well, and that's the thing. You have to have that. If the Republican Party alienates the Tea Party, they're going to lose their conservative voter bloc, which leaves them just some moderates. And look what happened to Romney and McCain. The conservatives stayed home. And they stayed home because they're not running conservative candidates. They're not running candidates that hold true to the traditional Republican ideals. Look, if you run a conservative candidate, a Reagan-esque type candidate, or a true conservative like a Rand Paul or something like that, I bring up Donnelly in the state of California. If you run somebody like that, particularly on the national level for president, you are going to get your conservative base. What you are also going to pick up, I think, is you are also going to pick up the independents because of everything going on in the world today, Russia, Obamacare, all these other things. You're going to pick those up, and you can win an election. If you run somebody who's moderate again because you're worried about running to the middle and alienating people, you are going to alienate that conservative base. You may get some of the moderates. You're going to end up losing again. And once again, I think that sorry, something just came over the wire. We'll talk about it hopefully if we get a chance to look at it. But I think that they're going to lose big, and California again is a prime example of that.
Absolutely.
Hey, we're up against a break.
We're up against a break. When we come back, we're going to have Contra Costa County District Attorney on the phone, and we're going to discuss the death penalty for the next half an hour. So stick with us here on the Sackheads Radio Show. 347-205-9399 is the phone number.
Sackheads Radio.
Sack News. Sack News.
Radio.
Sack News. Sack News.
Radio.
Reactionaries Speak radio program.
Introduce a little anarchy. Upset the established order, and everything becomes chaos. I'm an agent of chaos. Oh, and you know the thing about chaos? It's beer.
Friday night, 8 to 10 p.m. Eastern Time. here on BTR.
How you doing? John Grant here. When I'm not slaving over a hot microphone on the 405radio.com Saturdays at 10 a.m. Eastern, I check out Sean and Clint here at Sackheads Radio. We all appreciate the best political bloggers, writers, and commentators. We either get them on our shows or we make fun of them, as it should be. So check us out live Saturdays at 10 a.m. Eastern or forever on the podcasts on the 405radio.com.
This is Tammy Jackson, inviting you to join me on the Tammy Jackson Show every Tuesday night at 7 p.m. Pacific on the 405radio.com. Put down that remote and tune into the show that covers politics, guns and the Second Amendment, religious liberty, sanctity of life, the military, and more. I host newsworthy guests and work hard to be a conservative radio show that's not like all the others. So save Tuesday nights at 7 p.m. Pacific for me, Tammy Jackson, on the 405media.com.
Hello, I'm Paul, a student at Hillsdale College. Here is my professor, Dr. Larry Arnn, on the separation of church and state.
America's founders believed in the separation of church and state, in that the country was not to have an official religion or an official sect. But that did not mean that government was to be hostile to religion, or even indifferent to religion, as many today argue. In fact, America's founding document, the Declaration of Independence, includes both a reference to God as the author of the laws of nature and a confident assertion that human beings are endowed by their Creator with certain inalienable rights. Far from being hostile or indifferent to religion, America's founders understood the theology of the Declaration to be an essential part of the education of citizens.
This Constitution Minute was brought to you by Hillsdale College. To join the national conversation on the Constitution, go to constitutionminute.org.
Hi, this is Rooster from Outcry Radio. Catch me here on Blog Talk Radio every Saturday night at 11 p.m. Eastern Standard Time. Or follow my blog at conservativeoutcry.net. Now, back to the Sackheads.
Thank you, Rooster.
So nice of him to do our lead-in every single... We just leave him sitting there on hold all night for him to do that lead-in.
Every time. You would think he would just record it and give it to us.
No. That's too difficult. It involves a recording device, and he's not quite up to the talkie yet.
I just think that he doesn't like to be recorded at all.
So right now on the phone, we're going to welcome to the show Contra Costa County District Attorney Mark Peterson, and he's going to be speaking to us about the group California Death Penalty Reform, or Californians for Death Penalty Reform, excuse me. Mark, how are you, sir?
Very good. Thank you for having me.
So why don't you tell our listeners a little bit about the group and the history of it, if you will.
Sure. Well, obviously we have a death penalty system or a death penalty here in the state of California. Unfortunately, the whole process is broken. It doesn't work.
Severely.
And, yeah, it doesn't work at all. And one of the major problems with it is the length of delays. For example, someone gets convicted of a death penalty type crime. A jury returns a verdict of death. It takes 5 years for the convicted person to get an attorney for the appeal. It takes 12 years for the California state appeals to be decided, and then another 13 years for the federal appeals to be decided. So if someone's convicted today, it would not be for 25 years before they would possibly be executed here in the state of California. So the system is broken, and our group is trying to fix the system.
So that's 25 years a victim has to wait to get closure.
That's right.
For a victim's family.
That's right.
Is that a problem that is seen across the nation, or is that unique to California? And if it's unique to California, why is that?
Yeah, it's somewhat a problem in other states also, but California is probably the extreme example. And the reason for that is many years ago, the California Constitution reads that all cases where someone's been sentenced to death, immediately the appeal goes to the California Supreme Court. The thinking back then, and there's some logic behind it, is these cases are so important, death's the ultimate punishment, we should have the best legal minds looking at that case, thus it should be the California Supreme Court. But that was before we had as many cases as we have now. And now the California Supreme Court, which is one court made of 7 justices, can't hear all the appeals. There are 750 men on death row. They have about 450 appeals pending, and the California Supreme Court just doesn't have the time and ability to hear all of those.
Hello? Mark, are you there? Give me another second to try to come back.
Sure. You know, their website, www.deathpenaltyreform.com, for anybody interested in checking out, has some interesting statistics on it. And what it says is death row inmates in the state of California have murdered over 1,000 victims, including 229 children and 43 police officers. 235 victims were raped, and 90 of the victims were tortured. So that kind of tells you about the seriousness about some of these crimes, and people are waiting 25 years for closure.
Yeah,
exactly. Are you back, sir?
Yes, I am.
Okay,
I don't know what happened. Polly Klaas, for example, was murdered 20 years ago, or it was 20 years since that crime was committed, and the responsible, Richard Allen Davis, still has not been executed.
Yeah, and to give some of our listeners who may not be familiar with that case, that was a case out of Sonoma County where Paula Klaas was abducted from her home in Petaluma, was executed, I believe, off of, Pythian Road, somewhere off of Highway 12 in the city of Santa Rosa, or unincorporated Sonoma County, and then her body was dumped off of Highway 101. And this is a little girl. And
Exactly. And that family has not had Justice Mark Klaas, and the mother of Polly have not had justice for this number of years, and the citizens of California are paying $50,000 a year to house each one of these individuals every year, $50,000 per year.
And that's just
per inmate.
That's just the base. That doesn't include any medical issues, any special medication or anything like that, or as you know,
cable television,
special education. Has there been a push, especially with the use of DNA so heavily lately and how it's been used to exonerate? Has there been any thought or talk that you know of about changing it so if there is DNA used, perhaps it could speed the process up a little bit?
Well, that's an interesting fact. You know, we hear all the time, it seems like all the time, or several times, when wrongly convicted and then they're released from custody, which is something none of us want. None of us want somebody to be wrongfully convicted. Interestingly enough, in the state of California, the protections are so extensive, there's never been any incident where any innocent person's been executed in the state of California. Governor Brown, who happens to be personally against the death penalty, has even reviewed himself many of these individuals on death row, and even though he's philosophically opposed to the death penalty, he himself has not found any innocent person on death row. But if there are ways to use DNA to find or determine if someone hasn't committed the crime, certainly we're supportive of that. We want to catch the right person, we want to convict the right person, but the protections in place in the state of California are extensive. Only 1% of all the murders that get committed is the person even charged with the death penalty. So it's not sought very often.
And now you talked about the California Court of Appeals hears the death penalty appellate cases. And does the district, because I know the appellate courts in California have various districts, and do the particular districts in which the guilty verdict was rendered, are those who hear those cases a panel or the full court?
Yeah, well, the problem is that it is the California Supreme Court right now that hears all of them. So they hear all the death penalty appeals. Our proposal is
I thought the Court of Appeal heard it first. Okay.
No, that's the problem. The backlog is so severe, one court cannot hear all these appeals, and that's probably where I got cut off before. The California Supreme Court right now hears all these appeals, and one court simply can't handle the number of appeals. However, there are 105 appellate court justices, and 3 justices at a time can hear these appeals. So if you spread the appeal amongst the courts of appeals directly, 35 courts could hear these appeals instead of one of them, and that would help get rid of the backlog. That is the problem. And interestingly enough, this was in 2008, a bipartisan commission, the Fair Commission on the Administration of Justice, decided that this should take place. They recommended the very changes we're suggesting. And the California Supreme Court agreed with them, said, please make these changes, legislature, and the legislature refuses to fix this problem.
So what is the fix?
The fix is to send all the appeals to the California Court of Appeals first. The California Supreme Court can still hear them if they want to, but to send the cases to the Court of Appeals first. That's exactly what needs to happen. Our bill also requires that these inmates get an attorney within a year of their conviction, and they should. Why should they be on death row without an attorney if, in fact, there was something that was done wrong in the trial? We want them to get an attorney quicker. So there are many protections still built in for the inmate, but it does expedite the process.
Okay. And now if the state appellate courts hear the case and they find that there's no reason to overturn the conviction, would the state Supreme Court would then have the option to review it as well, and then would it go to the Ninth Circuit?
Yes, exactly. The California Supreme Court could still review it. And the California Supreme Court, if for some reason they saw a case and they wanted to take it without even going to the Court of Appeals, they can do that too. So it actually adds a layer of protection in for the suspect or the convicted. He gets a Court of Appeals review and a California Supreme Court review if the California Supreme Court review chooses to hear the case. And then it goes on, like you mentioned, to the federal courts of appeal.
Would there be an option for because just as kind of a layperson looking back at this, one of my first questions would be, okay, so these appellate courts hear all of these cases. Let's say they're all upheld. Would the state Supreme Court still have a backlog because the appellate courts are finding no reason to overturn these cases, or is there a mechanism in place to where the state Supreme Court could bypass it or rubber stamp it in some way and send it up to the Ninth?
Yeah, absolutely, that could occur. It would deal with the backlog because if you think about it for a minute, the Supreme Court justices, California Supreme Court justices, would read the California Court of Appeals opinion, and if in their opinion, their judgment, the Court of Appeals made the right decision, they've already looked at all the cases, they've reviewed all the transcripts, and they could just affirm it, and it goes on to the next step. For example, one of my last death penalty cases, the inmate or the suspect admitted doing the killing, said he was proud of doing the killing, he would do it again, he represented himself at trial. There are virtually no appellate issues there. Does that really need to be reviewed by the California Supreme Court? No. A California Court of Appeals can review it. Then the Supreme Court can look at it as closely as they need to, but it doesn't need all the examination from the California Supreme Court initially.
Is there anything in the bill, because this obviously is a very important issue, and it's one that we feel strongly about here at Sackheads Radio, and so we certainly appreciate your time coming on and talking to the folks about it. Is there anything in place in terms to deal with the fact, I know that there has been an issue with the method in which the death penalty is carried out, in terms of certain pharmaceutical companies won't sell the states the proper medication to administer the lethal injection. There have been appeals gone up saying that, well, it's cruel and unusual because they can still feel things, although their breathing and so forth has been stopped, so it's like they're suffocating. But is there anything in the bill to deal with those pharmaceutical companies who will not administer the medication, or to deal with that obstacle on the other side when it is time to actually carry the penalty out for the Department of Corrections and Rehabilitation, or for the courts to be able to carry out that punishment in a timely manner as well?
Right. Our bill addresses a couple of those problems, but not all of them, like the availability of the drugs and the fact that pharmaceutical companies refuse to sell them to states so the states can't execute these people. That is not able to be addressed in this bill. However, we do address in this bill that doctors who participate in the process as either administering the drugs or participate in some way cannot have their medical license revoked or taken away or penalized because they participate in a medically approved fashion in the execution. So it does address that. You bring up a very good point about some of these Department of Corrections regulations. Some of them are just absurd, and the legislature refuses to fix some of these problems. For example, right now, if someone wants to provide input on an execution, they can just send an email to the Department of Corrections saying, I oppose that execution. The Department of Corrections is required to meaningfully respond, meaning they've got to actually send an email back as to what they're doing, and it's called the Administrative Procedures Act. Well, this requires, so what happens is they just send spam email to the Department of Corrections. They have to respond to 20, 30,000 emails. The whole purpose is just to gum up the process, and so we deal with that in this legislation. But the cocktail,
Excellent.
Free drug cocktail or one drug is still an issue. We haven't fixed that.
Okay. Well, hopefully we'll have a way to. Mark, I'm going to bring Phyllis in here, and if you want to stay on with us, I really appreciate your time, but I definitely want Phyllis to be able to tell us her story. And Phyllis, are you there?
Yes, I am. And actually, the killer of my son was prosecuted in Contra Costa County, the county that Mark's district attorney in. My son was a Pittsburgh police officer who was murdered during a foot pursuit of two individuals who had just robbed a bank and a grocery store. And my son was killed in 2005. And if I could elaborate using a personal example, in our case, because Mark talked about the delay being on the front end in the appointment of counsel. In my son's case, his killer was sentenced to die November 2nd, 2007. His attorney for the appeal was not even appointed until March 25th, 2011. There still has not been an opening brief filed by his appellate attorney. He's requested and been given 10 continuances, and he probably will be given more continuances. So the delay and how families end up waiting decades for justice starts on the front end, and that's one of the important parts of our initiative. And I was listening to the show, and I heard your question about the DNA. And, you know, what I have seen occur on death row in California, especially when these DNA results have come in, what they've done is they've tied the death row killer into other cases. And there are several of them that have been given second death row sentences because of a cold case hit from DNA. Example, Michael Lyons was a little 8-year-old boy that was abducted, raped, killed, tortured, knifed over 70 times. And his killer, Robert Rhodes, was sentenced to death for killing little Michael Lyons. And they did a DNA match and hit a cold case hit out of a young 18-year-old Hayward High School student who was kidnapped. And so Robert Rhodes received a second death sentence based upon a DNA hit in Alameda County. That's what you're going to find DNA doing. You're going to find more people being convicted of other cases because they're in the system now their DNA can be matched.
And I also want to know, Phyllis, as a victim of the victim's family, I can't even imagine how unnerving and how just tumultuous and heart-wrenching it must be to sit there and watch this happen. And you know, your son was a police officer in Pittsburgh, California for 5 years. He was a United States Marine.
He was a Marine captain.
He was a Marine captain. He was a husband. He was a father. And all that was taken by these two individuals.
Dirtbags.
Dirtbags, thugs. We're an opinion show. We have that right. And the conviction was complete. He was sentenced. You know, they were sentenced to death, and now we're sitting here. You said 7 years later, and it hasn't even started yet. How does it make you feel like the state has just completely ignored the family, or the judicial system has completely ignored the family?
I think what you feel like is that people that participate in any capital case go in, and the jurors do a very good job, but a very difficult job for them, and it's hard. Everybody works really hard. The defendants get 2 defense attorneys, the prosecutors work hard, the judges work hard. It's traumatic for the victims. You get the sentence, and then you wait, and it's like a promise has been broken to you. And that's very hard. You know, one of the things I also want to say about my son served his country as a Marine officer. He lost his life protecting his community. He was an organ donor, saved 5 lives. He was expecting his first child. My grandson was born 2.5 months after my son was killed. I don't know what more my son could have possibly given the citizens of the state of California. Therefore, I feel no hesitation in asking the same citizens to now work with us to help reform the death penalty so that we get the justice that we're entitled to. By the way, my son's killer didn't even contest at trial that he killed him. You know, to be found guilty of a capital crime, you have to be found to have committed a crime that had special circumstances, and it only takes one special circumstance. My son's killer was charged with 3 special circumstances, and he admitted 2 of them. He admitted he killed my son in the performance of his duty as a police officer. Mm-hmm. He admitted that he shot him during the commission of a robbery. What he denied and contested was lying in wait. So there's no question as to did he do it. He did do it. He admitted at trial he did it. And as my son lay dying, his fellow officers tried to render medical aid, and he shot at them until he ran out of bullets.
Man, that's a heart-wrenching story, and I want to tell you that I'm so sorry for your loss, and I am. And I know you are very proud of the service, and I'm very thankful for the service that your son gave not only his country, but to the citizens of California. And I thank you for that, and for him. And we're blessed to have men and women in uniform that are willing to lay their lives down and on the line rather than swerve from the path of duty. With that, and we're going to go ahead and give you guys some time, and if you could let everybody know where to reach you guys, what can they do? Are you folks looking for donations? I know you're looking for votes. Is this going to be a ballot initiative?
We're looking for signatures to sign the initiative. We have to have over 807,000 signatures. If people visit our website, deathpenaltyreform.com, they can have a petition sent to them, maybe circulated among their family members and friends and neighbors. Send it back to us. Help us reach that 807,000. And if anyone has an extra $5 or $10, you can donate to us, because these to get an initiative on the ballot is very expensive. And unfortunately, there are many people that have millions of dollars that are willing to lay it down for killers. Not nearly so with victims. You would think it would be the reverse, but it's not. Just like the liberal media will give voice to the killers. And so I want to thank you for giving voices to myself, and I know you're going to be talking to Kermit. Thank you for giving victims voices. There are 234 child victims of death row killers right now. That figure's gone up since the one on our website. A guy was convicted in Riverside a couple of weeks ago of killing his second child, a 2-month-old baby. We need to have our stories told, so you give us that forum, and I so thank you for that.
It's the least we can do. It's an honor for us. This is... Believe me, if we can help more, we absolutely will. We can email, shoot me an email on how we can help, and we absolutely will. This is just such a story that needs to get told. Like you said, the liberal media is not touching this. They make such a big deal out of the...
Well, no, because they're anti-death penalty.
Right, they're anti-everything, but... they're
anti-anything.
They'll highlight the story of the suspect from how he grew up as with the rough childhood in a bad neighborhood, et cetera, et cetera.
He was turning his life around.
But they don't highlight the victim's family and what they're going through and what they have to give and the agony that they live in every day. And to me, that's
it's so true. And the legislation. Well, it's so true.
No, I agree. And what I'm going to do right now is I'm going to bring in Mr. Kermit Alexander, who is another family of a victim, and his story is just as touching and heart-wrenching. And Kermit, are you there, sir?
Yes, I am.
If you could, for those who don't know, maybe recognize the name of Kicking It Around, you are a former NFL player. You played for the 49ers. You played for the Seahawks and the Rams, if I'm 100%?
No, I played for the 49ers for 7 years, 3 years with the Los Angeles Rams, and 4 years, my last 4 years with the Philadelphia Eagles.
I'm sorry, the Eagles.
The Eagles, that's okay. And I'm a past president of the NFL Players Union.
So you definitely have a story to tell now, and I'm going to let you tell your story from the beginning then, and then I'll ask you questions. I don't want to interrupt you if that's okay.
That's okay. Well, my story happened in 1984. I overslept. Normally on a Friday morning I go in and have coffee with my mom and review what happened during the week, talk to her about what the kids are doing, my fellow brothers and sisters, what she's doing and how can we help, and various and sundry of personal things like that. That particular Friday morning I overslept. I was rudely awakened by my brother calling, saying to me, "Mom's been messed up, Kermit. Why did they do that to her?" And I had no idea what he was talking about. I told him to calm down and explain to me what happened. He said he had heard some noise in the room, heard some gunshots, went in, and the killer had just killed my baby sister and 2 nephews and had earlier killed my mother. He wrestled with the guy, fought with him, got hit in the face with the gun, broke free, fell on the floor and pushed the guy down next to him, and then ran out of the house. Killer and his accomplice went outside and got in a car and drove away. When he called me, all of this had already happened, and he was hysterical. I told him to sit down in the living room as calmly as possible. I'll be right there. And about 35 minutes later, I drove in. And when I got there, the house was surrounded by police. They were cordoned off, wouldn't allow anybody in or out of the house, and the whole neighborhood was in an uproar. I found out through one of the policemen who took me and my brother to headquarters to question us about what had happened. That's when I found out the news that my family had been massacred. My brother was destitute. He had been home because he was ill. He was heartbroken because he couldn't do anything to prevent it. And so I had to console him and control myself because obviously I was angry and wanted to take it out on someone. That's the story of the death of my family. I looked for the killer for about 8 months before he was captured in another incident. I never got a chance to get my hands on him, which probably is a blessing because either I or both of us would have been killed. He then went through the trial process, was found guilty without a reasonable doubt because his handprint was on a couch, on a trunk that put him in the scene. His accomplice had already given state's evidence, so the two of them had gone to commit a murder, but they were going to murder for hire. And what apparently had happened, either they scouted the people that they were going to kill, and they were at my mom's house, which is not unusual because she had kids over the house all the time, or they misread the address and went to the wrong house. In any case, they were hired by a businessman to wipe out a lawsuit because a family member had gotten hurt at a nightclub and had filed a lawsuit against him. He was going to get rid of the lawsuit by hiring this gang member to wipe out a family. They just went to the wrong house and killed the wrong family.
Oh, Lord.
Now, how terrible can you be?
Well, the fact that they would even take the contract to begin with tells you how terrible of people they are, and then it gets worse. So here we are 30 years later, and where's this case stand right now, Kermit?
The killer that was given a death sentence, the other 2 gentlemen that were with him got life with no parole. Because he was a trigger man, he got life. He didn't get life, he got the death penalty. And it's been reaffirmed through several cases that they tried to get it overturned, and it wasn't. It was a clear case of murder for hire, and he was just too stupid to go to the right place. He has sat on death row since 1986, I believe it. And we have been patiently waiting for the state to do its duty. And everything and anything gets in the way to prevent people from doing what they're supposed to be doing, starting with the governor on down.
And so where does the case stand now?
Terribly incensed about the way our justice system works. Once we've completed the case and it's gone beyond the trial and the conviction is obtained and then reaffirmed and reaffirmed and reaffirmed, and then nothing happens.
So there hasn't been any movement essentially in this case.
Has the appellate process been exhausted, I take it, and it's been reaffirmed and reaffirmed? So has the state or has CDC mentioned what they're waiting on? Is there any communication?
No. First they had problems with the type of medication they were supposed to use, so they changed that, and it went from a 3-drug protocol to a 1-drug protocol, and now we're waiting for them to stop dragging their feet and do what they're supposed to do.
So there's no other legal proceedings that they're waiting on. Everything is in place, ready to go. It's just whenever CDC decides to carry out the judge's order of execution.
That's correct. That's one of the reasons why I became a proponent for adjusting the death penalty so that it would not run into these roadblocks incessantly. So what we're promoting is that clean up the process.
So, and I don't know if we still have the district attorney online or not. I'm not an attorney, but it would seem to me that if an agency is refusing to carry out a court order, the court order being the death penalty, I know there's provisions in law about disobeying a court order. So can an agency be held liable some type or an identified agent of the agency for disobeying a court order by failing to carry out an execution?
Well, that's a good question.
They aren't refusing to do it. If they aren't putting roadblocks in the way, other people are continuously putting roadblocks in the way, which extends the time for more and more deliberation. We have thousands of dollars being poured into California from outside the state to delay and possibly eliminate the death penalty. And what they say is because it's taken so long, it doesn't work, and therefore it should be eliminated. And I say if you give it a chance to work, then we'll see whether it works or not. The ironic thing about it, I'm a former probation officer. I'm a former teacher. I'm a former coach. I'm a husband and a father. I'm the eldest in a family of 14 kids. And how do you look your brothers and sisters in the eye and say the law is what it is and we're blessed because we have it? Because in our case, we are not blessed. We're being tortured by our own system.
I absolutely agree. Mark Peterson, are you still on the line?
Yes, I'm here.
Could you go back to Clint's question a little bit? Is there any provision in law or what can be done with the CDC to bring that law forward or to put pressure on?
Yeah, I mean, if they're failing to carry out a court order, is there a 166 case? Is there something that, just looking up online preliminarily, is there anything that can be done in order to get some folks who are responsible for failing to carry out that judge's order?
Yes, we are trying to get the elected officials to do their duty. And as a matter of fact, Steve Cooley, the former Los Angeles district attorney, and I believe one of the district attorneys up here in Northern California have actually filed cases to try and get court orders for them to go forward with executions, specifically on the 3-drug protocol. Now, I happen to believe it's absurd that even the 3-drug protocol is cruel and unusual punishment, but unfortunately we have some activist judges who have said that. So we go, okay, let's go to the 1 drug that is approved in other states by the Supreme Court. It is constitutional. Well, when we try to go to that drug protocol, the elected officials seem to be dragging their feet to actually do that. So, yes, we're having to go to court to force our elected officials to do what the voters have said they want done. The voters of the state of California support the death penalty. They just don't like a broken death penalty. So what our reform initiative is trying to do is fix a broken process. But one of the problems is the legislature refuses to fix the problem. The governor refuses to fix the problem. The attorney general is refusing to fix the problem. So our only recourse is to go to the citizens to make our elected officials do what we want them to do.
Now, I have a hypothetical, and just hypothetical here. What would happen, besides the courts laughing the case out, if you went and you identified an individual at whatever correctional facility who was responsible for failing to carry out the order of death, which I believe would be a court order, right? That's a sentence.
Right.
What would happen if you brought again, just from Googling laws here, what would happen if you brought a case about failure to obey a court order forward on that person? Just out of curiosity here.
Right. Well, they would go to their state attorney or the attorney that represents the Department of Corrections, and they would file a response and say, you haven't sued the right person. They're following what the governor or others are telling them to do, and you need to, sue the governor, for example. And we may have to take whatever steps we feel necessary to get these actions done by our elected officials to basically follow the law. But right now, they're thumbing their nose at it. It's somewhat similar to when there's an issue that gets passed. If an elected official, perhaps the Attorney General, doesn't believe in it, then that person many times refuses to defend that law that was passed by the citizens in the courts. Very frustrated that they interject their own personal beliefs to thwart the will of the people, but that is what happens. And we'll probably continue to need to take legal action to get the law to be enforced.
And unfortunately, right now, it seems like this country, we have a real problem with elected officials not following the law from the federal level all the way down on a regular basis. So that's a problem. I do have two more questions real quick. Kermit, in your situation, we had a question in the chat room. What happened to the person that contracted those two killers?
He disappeared. He left town, and we believe he left the country. He was a Jamaican-born. I believe he was a Jamaican-born U.S. citizen who disappeared when this case hit the papers, and the perpetrators were telling everything that they know because they didn't care, and he disappeared. We tried to find him. We have not been able to.
Oh, Lord. And well, with that, we're up against a break. Folks, Kermit, Phyllis, Mark, we're going to do more with this, and we want to follow up with you guys as time goes on. This is just something that has to be watched. My heart breaks for the families, especially Phyllis and Kermit, you two specifically, but the victims in general throughout the state that are suffering by this. We'll do our best to help you guys get this message out. This isn't something that can go under the radar any longer, in our opinion.
And please feel free to contact our show. If you'd like to come back on and discuss it more, we would love to have you. I want to thank you folks very much. Mark, would you want to tell the folks where they can find this information one more time?
Yeah, the website, reformthedeathpenalty.com. And we'd love to have contributions and help on this. And thank you very much for having us on your program.
Anytime.
We
certainly
much.
Appreciate your time coming on. Thank you, folks. And God bless.
Phyllis and Kermit, our prayers are with you guys. We're going to be back in 3 here on the Sackheads Radio Show. We're going to talk about the state GOP convention and some speeches we had from there.
I'm Lori, a student at Hillsdale College. Here is Hillsdale President Dr. Larry Arnn on how the founders viewed God as the source of our equality and legal rights.
America's founders knew, obviously, that human beings are not equal in terms of strength or beauty, or in terms of intelligence, industry, or talents. They understood that because of such differences in talents and things like that, some people would be wealthier than others. But human beings are equal, the founders believe, in their possession of natural rights, such as the rights to life, liberty, and property. Today, many Americans reject this equality of rights in order to pursue equality of condition through redistribution, or spreading the wealth around, to use a famous formulation. This is destructive of liberty as the founders understood it.
This Constitution Minute was brought to you by Hillsdale College. To join the national conversation on the Constitution, go to constitutionminute.org.
Hey guys, it's Sean from Sackheads Radio. I know I've said it before. check out our friends at conservativeoutcry.net, but I really mean it. If you want interesting and exciting political commentary and analysis, that is the place to get it. Different, always spot on, always truthful, never pulling a punch. ConservativeOutcry.net. Tell Rooster to get Bulldog back on and that Sackheads Radio sent you. And also, coming soon, the Sackheads Radio Forum on ConservativeOutcry.net.
How you doing? John Grant here. When I'm not slaving over a hot microphone on the 405radio.com Saturdays at 10 a.m. Eastern, I check out Sean and Clint here at Sackheads Radio. We all appreciate the best political bloggers, writers, and commentators. We either get them on our shows or we make fun of them, as it should be. So check us out live Saturdays at 10 a.m. Eastern or forever on the podcasts on the 405radio.com.
Hi, this is Sarah Marie Brenner. You know, we often talk on the Brenner Brief about the fact that there really needs to be an organization to help people at the local level who are interested in running for things like school boards, city council, and other local offices. Well, I think I finally have the solution for you, at least for you women out there. It's called Politigal Network, Politigal Network.com. Their website's going to be launching mid-August, but they're already on Twitter at PoliticalUSA. I encourage you to follow them and become a member. Their goal is to be the #1 resource for conservative women. So if you love freedom, liberty, the United States of America, and politics, check out PoliticalNetwork.com or Twitter at PoliticalUSA.
Now back to Clint and Sean on Sackheads Radio, radiating elegancy and quality.
And we're back here on the Sackheads Radio Show. And we are getting off the wire right now that apparently Australia is, a couple different sources are reporting that Australia allegedly may have found 2 pieces of an airplane in the water. It's early, it's unconfirmed. This has to do with the Flight 370, the Malaysian Airlines Flight 370. So if anything more comes in while we're on the air, we'll update you, but it's, like I said, very preliminary.
I can't believe Sacco came in with that news sound.
I know, huh? Isn't that awesome?
So legit.
I want to high-five him and kiss him all at once.
Ready, go.
Well, he's all the way over there and he's hairy. So we had the pleasure this weekend of listening to former Secretary of State Condoleezza Rice speak at the convention.
Or as you called her, which I couldn't believe, rice cakes.
Yes, that's exactly what I called her.
I couldn't believe it, and she smiled, which was awesome.
Well, everyone else calls her Condi, so I figured I had to come up with something original to get remembered.
And the way that came about is there was that other lady there, Pam, and you called her Pam Cakes, which was hilarious. And then you saw Condoleezza Rice, and you said, "Hey, rice cakes."
Well, and
she looked at you like you were out of your mind.
And
you're like, media, no big deal.
Yeah, no kidding. Here's my badge. You can't kick me out. I know that one's going to stick by the way that her security staff reacted. Now, I've been put in a chicken wing before, but I've never had my elbow.
I've eaten a chicken wing before.
I've never had my elbow actually touch the top of my head. So that was impressive. It was a lot of fun. But we have a couple clips from her speech, and the first one is on education. And what?
What? I'm waiting. I'm waiting with bated breath.
So here we go.
The civil rights issue of our time is a high-quality education for every child. And if a parent cannot afford health and Palo or Fairfax County, and a parent cannot afford a private school education, don't commit that parent and that child to a substandard education. Give that child a voucher, a charter school, a way to get out.
Who was that?
Remember all the good things we said about Sacco?
You had one job, Sacco. You had one job to clean up the sound clips. So basically what Secretary Rice said is the biggest civil rights issue of our time is education. And she was saying in her speech that she's a Stanford professor. What she was saying is it's sad that she could tell you the quality of education a child gets based upon the zip code, and how children in the poor, lower-income neighborhoods will get a poor quality education. And it's not that the money's not there. It's just the schools in that area. Therefore, it's the biggest civil rights issue in the time of the time because we have these disenfranchised students.
Well, she actually said something to the effect of, if I can tell by the zip, I can read a zip code.
Didn't I just say that?
Yeah.
Okay. I was just checking to make sure it wasn't like in a Twilight Zone episode, like with a stopwatch. Stops time, and I was talking to myself, and then it breaks. So she goes on to talk about the importance of school choice for parents. So where parents of lower income children have, whether it's a voucher, whether it's a credit, whatever it is, to be able to give higher quality education access to those lower income families. It becomes a civil rights issue.
Much like what's being deleted out of New York City right now with Mayor de Blasio going after all those charter schools and options for low-income students.
Did you call him Mayor Damassi or Major Damassi? I didn't hear what you said.
I think I called him Major Damassi, but okay. I can't remember right now. It was a couple minutes ago. But no, listen. I agree with the fact that this is the biggest civil rights issue. I think that she hits the nail right on the head, and that it's something that our children are regularly being cheated out of a good education. And wait till Common Core hits. I mean, you think it's bad now.
It's already hit.
Well, yeah, but wait till we start seeing those generations graduate and move on. And if you think life is rough now, it's only going to get worse and worse and worse.
No, you were on a roll. I was waiting.
No, that's all I had, really. I thought you were going to jump right in there.
I was enthralled by what you were saying.
So the next, her next clip here is about her talking about people exercising their rights, and here it goes.
I once had a German friend say to me, you know, the problem with Americans is you think just because you have rights, you have to exercise them. But we, the most individualistic of people of this community, are also the most philanthropic.
Is this still going? Because I can't tell.
Oh, man.
Saka, what happened to these sound clips? These were so perfect when...
Yeah, that's what it is.
They were cut. I don't...
Here's the best part is I sabotaged a little bit of Sako's setup so he can't fight back tonight. And make a headphone adjustment while you're at it, because no, I'm just kidding. So essentially, she's talking about how we as a nation don't exercise our rights enough, and how we don't use the fail-safes that are already in place to hold our government accountable and hold elected officials accountable. Is the long and short of it.
Short.
I'm afraid to try any other ones right now.
Look, let's see. I don't know. Let's see what Sako did, because these were perfect sound bites. We had our microphone right there. So I don't know if there's a problem.
When you have a one-on-one like that, you figure,
or when Sako reinstalled the equipment here in the studio from taking it abroad to the convention. I don't know what the deal is. Hopefully not all of the sound clips are this way. Hopefully Sako actually did his job.
I should kill you.
You can't make a threat on the air.
That's it's there forever.
Yeah. My name is Inigo Montoya. My name is Sako. Sako.
You had the recorder way in the back.
Right, that's where the speakers were.
Yeah.
Right, the speakers were in the back with us and then facing forward. Listen, you were babysitting the equipment, Sako.
You know what? I'm going back to my seat.
Get us some cheeseburgers.
Poor Sako. One of the other things that she commented on is, trying to bring back the economy via the Keystone Pipeline and other projects like that, and how, A, it lifts that burden of being dependent on other countries for energy, but B, the amount of jobs that it would create, both along the pipeline route and in the southern states where it feeds.
That was one of her big ones.
You know what? Based upon the sound quality of the clips, I think we should lift our dependence on Sacco, which opens up a job opportunity here at Sackheads Radio.
Yeah, like we could even go on the air if Sacco walked out the door right now.
And he knows that, and he still takes it, which is hilarious.
We would be under the desk crying if Sacco was like, and I'm out.
Right.
So some of the other topics she got on was limited government, and essentially made numerous examples on how when a government grows so large, she used both the state of California and the federal government as an example, there's no checks and balances. There's no way to keep it under control. It actually stifles the people's speech there's people's freedoms because they're not heard. Let's see. I'm going to try.
His mom says the clips are good, just a bit loud. Because from our end, maybe it's just the way Sacco has the sound set up in our headphones tonight, but from our end, it doesn't sound good at all.
Well, let's try the last one, and this is...
Indeed, when you read our founding document, we have got to be the only country in the world for which our founding fathers gave us a right to life, liberty, and the pursuit of happiness. What in the world does the pursuit of happiness mean? I'm happy that Stanford wins football games. That's what they meant. Sorry for the Cal fans out there, but it's that's what they meant. No, they meant the pursuit of fulfillment. That it was up to you, the individual citizen, to know what would be fulfilled in your life, and you have a right to accomplish it. And so individual liberty and individual responsibility and opportunity and freedom and liberty all go together. And as Republicans, we hold that as our most essential and important value.
So Secretary Rice was talking about the pursuit of happiness and what specifically it means. And it was interesting because people think that, pursuit of happiness, well, I get whatever I want. Well, no.
Right.
No, you don't. You have the right to pursue your dreams within the confines of the law. Look, she gave such a wonderful speech. And again, we were very fortunate to have somebody of her caliber speaking there locally with everybody at the convention. And I have to wonder if, because she touched on, look, this is the California Republican Convention, and she touched on not only California issues, but very, very minimally. She spoke mostly about national issues, and it really sounded more like almost a campaign.
Early campaign.
Speech, where she talked about education, she talked about energy, she talked about small government, she talked about liberty and what that pursuit of happiness is, the exercising of individual liberty and so forth. What are your thoughts on that?
I think you're right. She also made a comment about the military and shrinking the military and what a risk that is to our national security. And she harped on that for a long time, and I thought she was dead on about it. But I agree. I think that she's setting up, and I don't know if she's hitting the campaign trail now or maybe for 2016, but she's definitely starting to work out speeches. And the reaction that she was getting, as you could hear, was huge.
Oh, absolutely.
Huge reaction.
Yeah, huge reaction, especially when she talks about, given the amount of Tea Party folks there, I think, she got a huge reaction when she talked about pursuit of happiness versus actually getting happiness. You're entitled to pursue your dream. You're not entitled to actually get your dream or to be happy.
You're not entitled to have it handed to you. You're just entitled to pursue it. And there's a gigantic difference, as it was pointed out by Mary in the chat room and a lot of other ones here. So she gave a great speech. If we can get it and clean it up, we'll throw it up on the website anyhow if you want to go back to listen to it.
Our apologies for that. I have no idea what happened because that was very clean sounding when we were. So it must be something either with the soundboard.
It's got to be BTR. It's got to be BTR because I pre-listened to them all prior. And I know Sacco, all joking aside, I know Sacco cleaned it up really well. So unfortunately, BTR once again victimizes us, and that's just the way it's going to be for the time being.
Well, we'll see. We'll see if we can't clean up. We have when we come back, we have Donnelly, who's running for governor of California. He's the kind of the Tea Party favorite in the gubernatorial race. we'll see what we can do. Maybe if we come back, or something that Sacco can do to the system to try and clean that up. So with that, our next couple interview segments are good to go.
Absolutely. And we also have Congressman Pete Sessions answering a question from you that I thought was dead on.
And we'll set that one up, because that's actually kind of a funny story.
The story behind that is great. So why don't we break a minute or two early so we have time to get them both in after the break. Phone number is 347-205-9399. If we have time, we will try to get to the phone lines here on the Sackheads Radio Show.
Sackheads Radio.
Radio.
Reactionary Speak radio program.
Introduce a little anarchy. Upset the established order, and everything becomes chaos. I'm an agent of chaos. Oh, and you know the thing about chaos? It's beer.
Friday night, 8 to 10 p.m. Eastern Time, here on BTR.
How you doing? John Grant here. When I'm not slaving over a hot microphone on the 405radio.com Saturdays at 10 a.m. Eastern, I check out Sean and Clint here at Sackheads Radio. We all appreciate the best political bloggers, writers, and commentators. We either get them on our shows or we make fun of them, as it should be. So check us out live Saturdays at 10 a.m. Eastern, or forever on the podcasts on the 405radio.com.
This is Tammy Jackson, inviting you to join me on the Tammy Jackson Show every Tuesday night at 7 p.m. Pacific on the 405radio.com. Put down that remote and tune into the show that covers politics, guns and the Second Amendment, religious liberties, sanctity of life, the military, and more. I host newsworthy guests and work hard to be a conservative radio show that's not like all the others. So save Tuesday nights at 7 p.m. Pacific for me, Tammy Jackson, on the 405media.com.
Hello, I'm Paul, a student at Hillsdale College. Here is my professor, Dr. Larry Arnn, on the separation of church and state.
America's founders believed in the separation of church and state, in that the country was not to have an official religion or an official sect. But that did not mean that government was to be hostile to religion, or even indifferent to religion, as many today argue. In fact, America's founding document, the Declaration of Independence, includes both a reference to God as the author of the laws of nature and a confident assertion that human beings are endowed by their Creator with certain inalienable rights. Far from being hostile or indifferent to religion, America's founders understood the theology of the Declaration to be an essential part of the education of citizens.
This Constitution Minute was brought to you by Hillsdale College. To join the national conversation on the Constitution, go to constitutionminute.org.
Hi, this is Rooster from Outcry Radio. Catch me here on Blog Talk Radio every Saturday night at 11 p.m. Eastern Standard Time, or follow my blog at conservativeoutcry.net. Now, back to the Sackheads.
Here on the Sackheads Radio Show, 347-205-9399. So we had two other interviews. One was exclusive, and then the other one was with the less exclusive. I want to talk about the less exclusive one first, and I want you to set that up, the one with Congressman Sessions. And the only reason... No,
we're going to go to Donnelly first, just because Sessions could dovetail into
Oh, that's right. Let's see.
So Tim Donnelly is a state of California assembly member, and he's running for governor of the state of California. To give you a little bit of background about Tim Donnelly, he established one of the largest Minutemen group in the state of California in order to guard the border because immigration laws were not being enforced. He's the Tea Party favorite. He gave an electrifying speech during the candidate speeches, and he had the biggest response. I mean, his group there was just phenomenal. They're great people. We had the opportunity to meet him and to actually discuss him briefly. We hope to have him on and to get a fuller interview with him on a couple other issues, but he seems to be the Tea Party favorite. I don't know that. I think that establishment Republicans are looking at another candidate, specifically Kashkari. However, Donnelly seems to be the one who had, in my opinion, the biggest fanfare, the most support there at the convention, and really hope his campaign is able to hold and get the endorsement from the GOP in the primary. I saw there was an LA Times article where it says Tim Donnelly gets the unofficial endorsement at the GOP convention, and there were other candidates, like I said, Neil Kashkari and so forth. But Neil Kashkari and Tim Donnelly seem to be the two heavy hitters for this race. And the difference that they got in terms of reaction during their speeches was, Neil Kashkari kind of got, people applauded after his speech and so forth, but Tim Donnelly, again, just electrified the room with what he was talking about. He spoke about the need for to be energy independent, to go after the shale off of the coast of California. He talked about individual liberties. He talked about the education system in California. He talked about business. And specifically, look, in California, there was a political ad that's being run here, and it features Texas Governor Rick Perry. And again, this ad is being run in California, and he's talking about how the business climate in California is horrible. And in Texas, he's basically saying, hey, come to Texas, where we have low taxes, very business-friendly. He's essentially trying to pull business from the state of California into his state. We caught up with Tim Donnelly, and I was able to ask him a question specifically about that, because jobs is a huge issue in this state. And let's. Do you have the clip available?
Yep, ready to go when you are.
Rocco, roll it. Hi, Mr. Donnelly, Kids Radio. Thank you very much for your time speaking with me today.
It's great to be on with you, Clint.
I know you're busy today, so I have one question, if I can have your time. Texas recently released a television commercial that aired here in California with Governor Rick Perry talking about how the business climate in California is so bad and how businesses are thriving in Texas, basically attempting to pull businesses from the state of California into Texas. As governor, how do you begin to counter that?
Look, first of all, we need a governor who cares enough to actually fight. And when Governor Rick Perry came out here, and he's a great salesman, he's coming out here stealing business after business after business, and it's not a hard sell. The costs in Texas for electricity is 3 times less. You can get a building built in 9 months in Texas, and it takes 18 months here on average. But the key is to have a governor who understands it and uses that bully pulpit to do a U-turn on the regulatory climate. We need to make California the most attractive place to do business on the planet. And that means you feel good about being here. And the government treats you with respect. They get out of your way so that free market, free enterprise can prosper.
Great. Sir, I appreciate your time.
Yeah.
And thank you very much. So he talks about free market principles being used, and in his speech, he ends up saying and closing it, and it got just a huge eruption of applause.
Enormous.
He said, I want to get to the point where we have U-Haul trucks leaving the state of Rick Perry's Texas and bringing their business back into California, and the place blew up. I mean, I think it was the biggest applause I saw.
It shook the room. It absolutely shook the room.
Yep. Bigger than Congressman Sessions when he spoke publicly after the media presser he had. Just the largest applause that he got. And he talks about Rick Perry being a salesman. And it's true. You kind of look at this ad if you're not familiar with it because you're not from California. Rick Perry is almost like he's selling AARP insurance or something. Right? I mean, he's not the
old colonial robot insurance from Saturday Night Live.
He's kind of out there, just doing his thing. So come on to Texas where we'll treat you right. And it's true, but it does sound more attractive probably because the current state of affairs in California versus Texas, it is more attractive to go to Texas. And, he's somebody who is concerned with that and recognizes the free market. But he also said something that I thought was pretty astute. He talked about energy prices and that being a component, what I got out of it, of business costs here in the state, in addition to building. Why does it take so long to get facilities, to get things built here in the state of California? Is it
horrendous
regulations and on, whereas those restrictions aren't as harsh in Texas? And so he brought a lot of other dynamics into play. And to be fair, he was getting ready to go in and go up and give his speech on stage when his staff and he was gracious enough to let me talk to him. And so he brought those other dynamics in within the time constraints he had, and I was very impressed with that. And again, that followed up by his speech he gave on the convention floor, I thought was pretty compelling.
Well, and that's why we're talking about this convention a lot, and because the implications that could have nationwide, being such a liberal state, being such a strong Democratic state, for him to be getting the reaction as a Tea Party member running for governor, and even those who aren't necessarily in the Tea Party caucus and the delegates or whatever even applauded that. So that tells you what a huge issue that is, and how a true conservative can really rally people around him. And I think that's huge. And I hope he can build that momentum and keep going. I think it's a great sign for other governors that are any elected official that are Tea Party leaning, that they can rally some people behind if they know which points bring us together. And I think that's a huge point in the state that brings old Republicans in Tea Party together. I think that's one of those
And not old
umbrellas.
Republicans. It could be younger people that are more affiliated with the Republican establishment also. I mean, they don't have to be old. And why you decide to discriminate against people of who are annually challenged, I don't understand.
Well, I didn't have Ken to pick on tonight, so I had to pick on somebody. I can't go through a whole night without picking on somebody.
Right.
Why do you do that to me?
I didn't do anything to you. You're the one discriminating against.
Rooster's not here, so I can't mess with an elderly person. It's
so
a rough night.
Throw something out.
I gotta throw something at somebody. Right. You beat Sacco into the ground about the sound clips, so I can't do that. It's just at some point you got to figure out a difference there.
Look, we had the opportunity to ask Congressman Sessions a question. Congressman Pete Sessions, he's out of Texas. I believe it's the 32nd Congressional District in Texas, and he's the chairman of the House Rules Committee. So he's kind of a big deal. And again, it's kind of interesting that they brought him into the California Republican convention. But
that was one that you brought up, and why he was there, and it's really I couldn't make the two click.
Look, he's a heavy hitter in the Republican Party. They're trying to bring California back.
Right.
They understand the condition the state Republican Party is in, and to do that, they really have to unify. Particularly with their Tea Party or their conservative Republican folks, and he's fairly conservative. I don't think he's not Tea Party, but he's fairly conservative, and they have to unify that. He has a lot of experience in that area, and I think that's why they brought him in. Now we were in this press group, and he was getting questions about, and he was clearly getting irritated, which is great.
Even better.
Because the media there, we're in California, right? They were all left leaning. Associated Press was there, like I said, I believe.
AP, LA Times, San Francisco Chronicle, and Washington Times had somebody there.
And who was asking questions from what paper? I don't know, but they were left leaning, and they asked them questions. Like one question was, there's no something to the effect of there's no women's facilities in your district in Texas, and he shot back with. Yes, there are. They're able to get care at these facilities and blah, blah, blah. And he was clearly irritated with those types of questions, and particularly with how many seats they're trying to pick up in the Congress and so forth.
That and Obamacare. They went on Obamacare but from the left side about how great it is, and essentially was like, how can you not see the wonder in this Obamacare thing? And
is that a direct quote?
I think so. I think that was definitely from one of the news.
So that's kind of setting the scene. So he's here in California, in the belly of the beast. He's talking to media which is clearly left. And then he said he was going to take 2 more questions, and so I raised my hand, and another reporter raised her hand. He said, "Okay, I'll take you 2," referring to her and
Thank
me.
you. 2-part question.
Oops, sorry. And so she tried to defer, and she tried to say, "Oh, go ahead," because she wanted the last question. And he said, No. Ladies first," essentially saying, "No, you've kind of pissed me off, so I'm going to let..."
And you're not going to dictate to me which way I'm going to take my questions in. You know what I mean? Like, I've let you beat me up for the last 20 minutes, and I've been nice.
I thought it was interesting, and so she asked another question about,
Obamacare,
about a healthcare-related question. And then I got to ask my question, and I was the only one that asked something off topic. And do we have the clip, Sacco?
Yeah, the 800-pound elephant in the room. Here we go.
Okay, go.
Congressman, thank you. 2-part question off the healthcare topic. Number one is there seems to have been a breakdown in relations between the United States and Russia since November 2011, when Secretary of State Clinton called into question the Russian electoral system. And since then, February of 2012, the Russian Admiralty came out and said that they're going to start their ballistic missile submarine tours worldwide. Again, up to that point, they've done 10 a year since the collapse of the former Soviet Union, and they've been mostly local. Since February of 2012, we've seen Bear bombers coming up towards Alaskan airspace, coming up towards California and flying north. We've seen Soviet missile submarines in the Gulf of Mexico as well as off the eastern coast of the United States. They've circled Guam. They seem to be ramping up this activity, which hasn't been seen since the Cold War. So my questions are, one, do you believe we're headed towards another Cold War, and is that a topic of conversation in Congress? And number two, is the party looking at, as we approach 2016, running another Reagan-esque Cold Warrior to deal with this potential threat?
The marketplace in world military affairs and diplomatic affairs have found themselves turned upside a number of times. There are countries that have formed relationships, notwithstanding the EU, notwithstanding the subcontinent, as you dealt with the Pakistan and India circumstance, as you dealt with trade agreements. The United States will find itself in a continually moving forward economic world involved in these things as long as we need energy and oil from other countries. And the Republican Party, in fact, understands better than I think Democrats do, although they're learning, that the economic vitality as enunciated by any advantages that we're seeing economically have come as a result of decreased cost on energy. We didn't have, despite this being one of the worst winters ever, you did not see a spike of home heating fuel. You did not see people out in the cold. You saw ample supply. You saw the price reduction. And what Republicans are going to talk about is how we can influence world affairs instead of being deeply involved, because we need the energy as it finds itself, whether it be in Kazakhstan, across to the Middle East. We want to find ourselves where we are self-sufficient. And I would suggest that rather than engaging in what might be a Cold War activity of beating up or producing and encouraging nationalism here in the United States against Russia, against other countries, we would want to find a way to effectively put ourselves where we can be a resolver of problems. Now, the last thing, which you didn't get into, I don't want to get into, but every single country is dealing with terrorism, and they're dealing with the problems of drugs. And these narco-terrorists will continue to dominate as long as we allow them to, and we've got to figure that out also. And lots of these groups get their money the same way. So but I think that the best way to do it is making our country stronger, not having to give away what might be the XL pipeline to China, who in the short and the long run is a key adversary. They are out flexing their muscles. So I think I would answer it, we need to have a great energy policy here in this country.
So he basically, he didn't say anything about a Reagan-esque Cold War, which answers that question in and of itself.
Right.
But he talks about, and he kind of went about it in a roundabout way, about, hey, we don't want to stir up this nationalism. If he would have left it at that, I would have been concerned. But he said, we don't want to stir up this nationalism about against Russia. So they don't want to push a Cold War, which I get. I get why he's saying that. But he also talked about energy, which was interesting. So the talk, what I gathered from that is, hey, they're not talking about a Cold War in terms of a military buildup. What they're talking about is energy policy in order to squeeze the Russians, because that's how they get a majority of their income. A large portion of their income is through energy, petroleum and natural gas. And again, that was Congressman Pete Sessions from the 32nd District of Texas. And he talks about, look, how Reagan defeated the Russians was through, and during the Cold War was through energy.
Right.
They couldn't afford the costs, and Reagan certainly had an energy policy as well as a Cold War policy that was able to deal with that, and consequently the Soviet Union collapsed. And I think that's where he was going without coming right out and saying it. I understand. I believe they want to be very careful right now with the rhetoric against Russia. I don't know. I would have just been just as happy if he would have said, yeah, we need to build more carriers and park it over there and send the 7th Fleet. And
send a message.
Yeah, and send a message. I would have been like, okay, salute the flag and keep going, right? But but he talked about energy policy, which was telling to me in that I believe that's where their discussions are focused. They're not focused on the military buildup or on the nationalism in terms of U.S. versus Soviet Union or U.S. versus Russia. They're focusing already on energy policy, and that being the driving factor in order to squeeze Russia. That's what I got out of it.
Well, and it's a good time, too, because, with the Keystone Pipeline coming up and the increased shale and fracking and all that stuff, as Iggy pointed out in the chat room, heating oil in some areas are up over $5 a gallon. I remember when I was buying heating oil back east on the East Coast for 75 cents a gallon, and it wasn't that long ago.
Look, and you can get heating oil in a massage parlor for cheap.
Different oil. Different oil altogether.
I didn't look. I'm from California. I don't know anything.
I almost wonder if that's going to be the GOP's approach on this is, you know what, we need to drill, baby, drill, just like we've been saying we've needed to for a long time.
Look, the GOP, Sarah Palin, they were wrong on Russia. I'm sure they're wrong on drill, baby, drill.
and make sure we produce enough energy, and then I'm sure what that does, I'm hoping that's what it does, if we do strictly, we sell to the EU and then sell within country, that'll drive our prices way down, because the other thing that needs to happen is if we can get our dollar to spike, and if we can get people to build wealth here and we can actually become a wealthier nation because of the energy, then that'll hurt even more, because if the worst thing for Russia right now would be to be choked out of their energy and their finances.
I just like the fact that you said Russia choked out in the same sentence.
But if we could sell our money, if we could sell our oil and natural gas to Europe, if we can keep them from buying Russia's oil and natural gas, that'll hurt their purse. It'll increase our purse, and the side result is we'll be making, if they do it right, we could be making enough energy and oil that our prices here will drop. People will have more money to invest, and people will have more money to do X, Y, and Z with, and it's kind of an everybody win situation.
Well, and what that would allow is if we started exporting our energy resources, it would give those European nations a reason to give tougher sanctions to Russia. Right now they don't. Great Britain gets a lot of their energy for them. What is their incentive for having any kind of referendum against the Russians. There's really not any, so it would certainly open up their ability. Now, about the dollar, it would certainly help our economy as long as our spending policy and our fiscal policy is in line with that, because we can't have one and then just spend more because now we have more money.
Right, but that opens them up to that other prong to push out and say, hey, you know what? Now we're making all this money. We got to stop spending it and printing it.
It does, but they would have to combine both for it to be effective. Now, something else we talked about Russia, and this kind of dovetailed right in. Look, the sanctions are a joke.
Oh, I know.
Against Russia. Look, I know the point's been made. Oh, President Obama is doing his NCAA bracket while Putin.
Well, he was on vacation.
Is determining how
he
he's going to
have done his NCAA bracket
on
vacation.
Soviet Union of Russia. And it's look, when you have the people who are targeted making fun of you
on your sanctions.
From your sanctions, when they're basically saying the Academy Award should go to you for best supporting actor.
Yeah, no, it's pretty amazing, isn't it?
When you have somebody who's sanctioned saying, quote, Comrade Obama, which, by the way, the fact that you call him Comrade Obama is funny on so many different levels.
Right.
One, because that may be what the friends on his left call him in their meetings.
And I'm sure when he read that, he was like, well, see, they're starting to like me even more. They're calling me Comrade.
Either that or, hey, this is somebody from my college years when they used to call me Comrade in the Marxist Club. So they call him Comrade Obama. And what will you do with those who have neither accounts nor property abroad? Or didn't you think of that?
He actually said that. He actually said that.
They actually made that. They are mocking us, and by us I mean you, President Obama. But they're mocking our country. They don't take this seriously. And they've pretty much said that military action is off the table. We're not going to do anything. We sent some F-16s over with some pilots.
Hopefully we sent the planes. They just, they sent some F-16s. They didn't verify if it was the planes and the pilots or the planes without the pilots or what. We're hoping
or
it's
they were
both.
model aircraft. Just like a
That's true. I didn't even think.
Right.
It was Biden saying it.
Right.
So we're going to send 16 to Poland, 16 F-16s. He just pulled out a box. He pulls out a box of snap tights, and here they are.
Right. There's no paint or glue.
Because I sniffed it all. They should really.
I dare Joe Biden to send a box of model fighter aircraft to Poland and say, here's the aircraft we promised you. Love Joe.
And the other thing that needs to get done, on top of Joe sending those over, is the Eastern European missile defenses need to start yesterday. We said that the first week this came down. It needs to start.
We pretty much nailed it.
Right. Well, we nailed a lot of it with that. Reports coming out now that Ukraine's essentially just given Crimea to Russia. They've done fighting for it. They've had a fatality already in this from alleged Russians that killed a Ukrainian naval officer, and they may have a couple more hostage. All this other stuff's starting to come out, and really, we need to figure something else out than what this president is doing. And, if that means we need to figure out a new president, then so be it.
So how does Russia, and what you meant by that was elections.
Yeah.
Yeah. So what concerns me is, how does Russia connect Crimea? How do they get supplies to the Crimean region? How do they get they're going to have to go through the Ukraine. If they want to truck things in?
No, they'll just, I bet you they build a little port on that little strip of waterway they have and run it over.
Like run it over?
Yeah, literally.
With Nikes? Like
Nikes.
What, they're going to build the port and then run the port over? Why would they
All I
do
see
that?
is Putin shirtless with one of those giant Maersk containers on his back, just trudging through the water. Just, there you go, comrades. Here's your vodka.
I want to see Putin shirtless, like christening a naval vessel with just like a big bottle of champagne or something, or a bottle of vodka. I don't know, whatever they christen vessels with over there, and have like a big chunk be taken out of the ship, or just knock the whole ship over. Like it's going into the water, the whole thing just capsizes when he hits it with a bottle of vodka.
Oh, that's awesome! I like that idea. I think we should nail it like that.
Any news on the jetliner?
Yeah, so Australians reporting they have two large pieces in the water 2,200 miles southwest of Australia. That's going to be somewhere near Antarctica at this point, I'm thinking. Nothing's confirmed yet.
Or Canada if it went all the way around.
Right, if it really, really got that current. The Australian guy with all the scrambled eggs on his shoulder, I was reading as we were listening to the session, said that they haven't confirmed what it is yet. It could very well be something off a container ship, but they're not saying this is it. They're just saying they get a bead on 2 items and that they're sending ships that way. So we'll find out about that. If it is, it blows my whole theory on what happened to that flight and what the possible outcome could have been. I honestly was under the belief that it was taken over and it was somewhere in eastern Pakistan. Not Pakistan, it's right nearby.
Okay, is that
Western Pakistan, rather.
Is that by like the Green Bay Packer stands?
Yes, it's right near.
Okay.
It's right near the beer aisle.
Next to the Green Bay Packer Georges and the Packer Freds, and then you got the Packer stands, and they all kind of hang out together and form their own little cliques.
So we, because and here's the way I looked at it is, if it is the Taliban, if it is Al Qaeda, if they took it over, if they used those pilots because they could have very well done that to take the plane over because they wanted it for other nefarious reasons. They could have shot themselves in the foot, not literally. Well, perhaps they did. We just don't know that yet. Because if they took that plane over there and they killed everybody on board, and the majority of it are Chinese citizens.
In Pakistan.
China's mad. And China's mad for several reasons. One of it is that people are outraged. And China actually is starting to make their people happy the last few years, and I don't think that they want to upset that. And it would be interesting to me, if that's the case, what that does. If China just turns around and says, oh, you guys have it there? We're going to be right there.
We'll be right there to pick it up.
Overfly everybody, bomb the hell out of Pakistan, just left and right, up and down, and just walk away. Because China doesn't have, listen, they don't care about collateral damage. They're very, they don't care at the end of the day. And they have the technology and the ability to do it. And if they just decided to roll over, we talked about, when was the last time China, outside of World War II, has really attacked anybody on a large scale?
We sent Americans to help that. The Japanese were kicking their
rear ends in.
Yeah.
So I think that if that is the case and, nothing's confirmed yet, I think that could be a real game changer for the Taliban and nations that harbor them, because if China's going to go, because it's not like us where we have,
Absolutely. Israel could be like, whew, thank you, China. Thanks for helping us out the way the U.S. wouldn't.
Exactly. Wow, who would have thought that one of Israel's tightest allies was China all of a sudden? The enemy of the enemy is my friend, and that that could very well come. And there's a bunch of theories out there right now. I know Reactionaries in the chat room says it's in a hangar in northern Australia. I've seen that it's been in possibly in Diego Garcia.
I've heard Area 51. I can't confirm that.
52 as well.
52 as well, and
55,
46.
which I said earlier in the chat room. 55 is the honeypot. That's where all the good stuff is.
Yeah. And Bermuda Triangle. Did some weird shift and ended up in that region. So I've heard a bunch of different theories. I don't know which one I put most credence into.
No, I don't know. And listen, until they either find it or, unfortunately, it gets used as a weapon. And that was my biggest fear from the beginning. When you start reading all the radar tracks and it took that left turn, and then you find out that the guy's family moved out.
Was that in Albuquerque?
Yeah.
Okay.
The guy's family moved out the day before. There's a couple pictures out there. The flight simulator thing for the captain didn't bother me at first, because I know pilots that have it, because they get a certain amount of credits for certain things and all this other stuff. But now that they actually pulled the flight simulator and they're starting to get data off of it, they're realizing that there's some flight plans that were erased out of it that could quite possibly have been to landing strips in 5 or 6 different Southeast Asia or the Middle East. So it's going to be interesting to see what comes about.
And look, this may be a mystery, honestly, that never gets solved. They may never find out exactly what happened. They may be able to ping, whatever components on a jet they can ping, the engines or whatever. But bottom line is they may, if that thing disappears, they may never be able to truly understand what happened to the passengers or whatnot. I have Socko in my ear saying 90 seconds left. My friend, it has been a wonderful show.
It has been a wonderful show, and welcome home, guys. It was a nice trip with you boys, and I really, seriously, you guys were just on it this weekend. I can't thank you enough for the hard work that you guys did.
No, you too. Like I said, we talked about it briefly. We all have our role. We all do our roles very, very well. It all came together very well. Successful convention. Sacco, you kept us up and running with everything that you did. Sean, you kept us out there with the social media and so forth, and I kept us out there on the face-to-faces, and it was really good working with you guys and being out there. I look forward to doing it again.
Yeah, hopefully fall.
Hopefully fall, and who knows? Maybe the national convention if we can get it.
I'm down.
Absolutely.
Flat tires.
So for Sackhead Sacco,
Sackhead
Clint, this is Sackhead Sean. We will see you next Wednesday night at 8 p.m. here on the Sackheads Radio Show. Check us out, sackheadsradio.com. You can actually see pictures from the event. Let's see if you can guess who is who in those pictures. I want you to throw it under the comment section. It's the first one. You can get pictures and see who is who, what your guess is. So put your name and what your guess is on those pictures. It'll be interesting to see. Here's a little hint. I tagged Sacco. We'll see you next week.